Hello and welcome to Miss Hannah Loves Grammar. In this video we'll be exploring some of the central ideas at the heart of John Donne's poem The Flea. So, John Donne is the most famous poet in a category coined by Samuel Johnson as the metaphysical poets. Metaphysical poems use conceits or intriguing and unconventional metaphors to illustrate their point. So in our poem we have a flea used to illustrate why two people should get together. A major theme that resonates across Donne's work is the tension between physical desire and religious righteousness. Now, these two ideas seem opposed to us today, but at the time that Donne was writing, people were actually fighting for their religious virtues. There was a civil war going on in the background. So the idea that you'd be passionate about physical desire and passionate about religion were not actually opposed at all. Other features of metaphysical poetry, though, are unusual rhyme schemes, humour that's ambiguous, and double entendre. There are two other concepts that denote themselves from Latin that I'd love us to consider as well, because they echo throughout the metaphysical poets that I'll be considering with you in future videos. So the first is called Memento Mori, and it translates from the Latin as remember death, or remember you have to die. And it really stems from a medieval Christian theory of reflection on the transience of life and mortality, that you will die, you have to die, and when you die you will no longer be able to do what you can do as you are living. So alongside it is a twinned coupled concept called Carpe Diem. It translates from the Latin as pluck the day, but we commonly say seize the day. And really it's saying, well, Memento Mori means you will die, but Carpe Diem means life is for living, so have no regrets, enjoy each day, make the most of it. Well, you might be thinking, well, hang on a minute, how does that link to a flea? Well, the speaker we have has been bitten by a flea, as has his potential lover. He then uses the fact that their blood is mingled in the flea as part of his rationale for discussing why their bodily fluids couldn't just mingle some more by sleeping together. As the lover seeks to kill the flea from stanza 2 onwards, we hear the speaker try to dissuade her by stating that if she does, she'll be killing herself, him, the flea, and the institution of marriage. Sounds pretty serious. Well, by the start of stanza 3, she kills the flea and perhaps assumes, like us, that might kill the conversation with our speaker. In fact, she's wrong. Our speaker revives the hopes behind his erotic desires by reminding her that if she did not suffer by the flea being killed in the first place when their bloods mingled inside the flea, she need not reject him the pleasure of their bodily fluids mixing by them having sex. Pretty grim, but let's get gritty into the actual grim. So, mark but this flea, and mark in this how little that thou deniest me is. It sucked me first, and now sucks thee, and in this flea our two bloods mingled be. Thou knowest that this cannot be said, a sin nor shame nor loss of maidenhead. Yet this enjoys before it woo, and pampered swells with one blood made of two. And this, alas, is more than we would do. So we begin with quite a dramatic look at this flea, mark but. And it's constantly referring in the first two lines of how trivial this flea is. It's little. But this is all part of the logic behind the exaggeration within this poem, okay? The speaker intends to prove that its intended lover is dramatic by denying him sexual favour. And so by saying, well, look at it. This flea can suck blood from you. And, you know, it's completely unfair. Now, the repetition of suck in line 3 is quite pertinent because the repetition of that verb suggests excitement. He's excited that this flea has pulled her blood and his. Yet also by line 4, the verb mingled signals really quite renewed fascination and potentially even arousal at their bloods mingling inside this flea. Now, by line 5, it's obvious to us as readers now what he's seeking. And it's not love, it's lust. Okay, and the fact that he tries to talk away the idea of sin or shame or loss of maidenhead as nothing to worry about, in an age where religious virtue and purity was everything to live for, I think this would be a very unconvincing argument. Yet the argument is, he's comparing their blood being mingled inside this flea to sex and saying, well, why shouldn't it be any different if our bodies mingle, just like our bloods have mingled inside this flea? We shouldn't be scared of that. More than anything, we can definitely hear the anger and resentment of the speaker, as we continue to read on in this stanza. The speaker complains really quite jealously of the injustice of the insect that gets to enjoy her before wooing her. And I think the use of pampered swells in the penultimate line of this stanza really exacerbates the idea. He's frustrated, okay, that this flea is growing in size, and because it's taking away her blood. And the drama really echoes in the final line of this stanza. Alas is more. I think the dramatic language of alas really amplifies his frustration at how restrained he is expected to be when a flea gets all that it wants without any question. So, oh stay, 3 lives in 1 flea spare, where we almost nay more than married are. This flea is you and I, and this our marriage bed, and marriage temple is. Though parents grudge, and you we are met, and cloistered in these living walls of jet. Though yous make you apt to kill me, let not to that self-murder added be, and sacrilege, 3 sins in killing 3. So from the start of stanza 2, the speaker seeks to save the flea. In fact, the speaker asserts that by saving the flea, they preserve their fluids that mingle inside it. And interestingly enough, the humour of our speaker is very much intending to sort of highlight once more that he and their potential lover have been intimate through this flea. They should see that as something really special. They shouldn't want to lose it. And I think the overtones of religious imagery really help amplify that. So now, this isn't just a normal, annoying little flea. This flea is now holy, okay? And the acknowledgement here at the start of the stanza with an acknowledgement of the Trinity with 3 lives in 1 flea, and really emphasises that this is not just their bloods mingling. This is almost a spiritual union, as heightened by line 4 in this stanza, where it's our marriage bed, our marriage temple, and the repetition of marriage, they're more than married, as it says in line 2. Though I think it's important to acknowledge at the time, unlike a marriage with God as they would have seen it, and as the third component to a happy marriage between husband and wife, the third component here is in fact a flea. So it's very playful. I also think that there's a moment in this stanza that really acknowledges potentially this man has tried before and not won this woman's heart. And I think it's, though parents grudge and you we are met. So that's a sign he's gone there, it hasn't worked out. And here he is still trying it. And I don't know, the dramatic scenario that's presented to us in this poem is really unclear, but potentially one interpretation is that, and cloistered in these living walls of jet, it could mean that they're alone in the dark together. It's quite a creepy moment if that's the case. Or it could just still be living out the idea that they're in this flea. I think that by the end of this stanza, it's quite emphatic. We get the impression that this woman is incredibly frustrated by him by this point. The evidence of the disdain is, though you make you apt to kill me. It's really like, right, well, you want to be done with me. That's serious disdain. Additionally, though, the emphatic nature of his plea that not only would she be killing this flea, herself and him, and the idea that that is sacrilegious because this flea is now holy is heightened once more. The speaker has to remind her not to kill the flea because it would be like suicide and like murder. Though as we read on, that doesn't stop her. Cruel and sudden hast thou since purpled thy nail, in blood of innocence. Wherein could this flea guilty be, except in that drop which it sucked from thee? Yet thou triumph'st, and sayest that thou findest not thyself, nor me the weaker now. 'Tis true. Then learn how false fears be. Just so much honour, when thou yield'st to me, will waste, as this flea's death took life from thee. So, start of stanza 3, the flea is killed by the potential lover. And in fact, it would seem that she seems quite triumphant, having won over his logic by killing this flea. And I think that's said when he says, thou triumph'st and sayest that thou. Unfortunately, though, she hasn't got that much to triumph over, because our speaker rejects her sentiments. And his argument is, if killing the flea is nothing, What should your loss of honour be? You've just killed something. What's your honour to you if you've done that? I think more than anything, the last two lines really focus on how the speaker seeks to get the final word in. The flea caused you no harm, so why should you worry about physical contact with me causing you harm? He's like, you're clearly quite reckless, why should you mind? Ultimately though, this poem ends on quite an ironic end, okay? Feminists like myself might note that this woman has the final say on what happens next. Ultimately, we don't hear from her, but the only power our speaker has is the power of argument, not of action. On a final note, the structure of this poem really keeps the logic of his argument in action. We see the AA, BB, CC, DDD form in action. With every couplet, we get this new idea. And it's interesting that lines alternate between 8 syllables, that's called iambic tetrameter, and iambic pentameter, which is 10 syllables per line. It's interesting that each stanza opens and closes by the iambic tetrameter. Ultimately, this is a very well thought out, manipulative argument. And perhaps its most interesting metaphysical trait is the way it juggles its spirituality with its erotic desire, which is very much the sentiment that we see in a lot of John Donne's poetry.